in the background there, by the way, is the May Day rally, and the ETU representation at that May Day rally was the biggest representation of the other unions there. It was fantastic. We know that a number of people were all caught up because of shift things, but if you were in the country areas, you might not have made it, although some did make it from the southwest. I know that, and congratulated them for coming along. But it was a good family day. But what was also important to see, that not only in May Day, even as we were, not only with the people who were at the May Day, but as we were walking round the town, the general support in the public is in opposition to privatisation. So that's something that we need to keep coming back to during the course of all of this. So, you know, we had intended having this conference last year. It was the later part of last year we were going to have a supply conference. We'd been talking about it. We wanted to look at a range of things, whether it was membership staff, apprenticeship staff, things like that. And at the time we had, within the Liberal government, there was clearly a bit of a battle of wills going on, where Barnett was still saying he opposed the concept of privatisation of power. He said it was always his position that he opposed that. Yet you had people like McLaughlan and others, which I'll come to in a little bit, who were pushing another agenda. But, you know, it is amazing that West Australia comes through the biggest resource boom it's ever had. Now, historically, West Australia had a big resource boom in the 1970s when the whole iron ore industry opened up, and it was huge for its time. But this time round, with the iron ore, with the oil and gas, with the alumina, this was the biggest boom that we had had, and it ran for over a decade. And we're virtually bankrupt. I mean, that's got to be, I mean, people have got to be shaking their head and going, what did the government do? What did the government do with the resources there? I mean, they went in for some boutique things that have been a disaster. And by the way, if you go down Elizabeth Quay, if you want to have a walk there, go fairly soon, because it's going to mainly be dug up again because the sewage system is stuffed. They brought over, I'm not having a go at MDS, but they brought over an eastern state, I won't say which state it was, but we think it was an unlicensed plumbing company. I don't know who it was, but it was under the auspices of the state government, so they're trying to, you know, put the blame elsewhere. So that's going to get dug up. But they've spent money in things like that when they've neglected some of the major, you know, the resources that the state needs. So we had that position now where you've had McLaughlan on the television and all the others on the television saying that we've got to go in to selling off the utilities, selling off assets, so that we can get money, because they're going to lose their AAA. And I know that Lance is here today and is going to go through, I think Lance was going to go through a range of the figures in a report that we got commissioned. It was a similar report, which Simo, I think, will talk on, that Queensland had got done, and we got one done by, I think it was the same company. And in the research that they've done, and it's one of 3 reports, it's one report, but we've had the first part of it. We've already got that and released that, and it was to be done in time for the budget, which was good. It allowed us to brief up reporters, so that the reporters got in there were actually aware that not only if you sell off the asset, you've got to pay off the debt the asset has, and once you started doing that, you start seeing that you're selling off the farm to buy a couple of years' worth of crop. So, but anyway, Nairn's been pushing the position, and of course we saw the change in Barnett's language, moving from opposition to privatisation to then moving towards the support and the concept of privatisation. And he's made that, I think, glad that he's made it, he's made that into an election issue for March next year. Now, just to take a step back, round about early 2014, it was envisaged that either Barnett would get rolled early, or that the others would beat him down on the privatisation move. So we actually went into a joint position with the ASU, and you guys know the ASU better than I do. The ASU covers mainly the white collar section of the industry, and we decided that we would go into a use your power. And obviously use your power can be, we want that for people to use their power to vote against privatisation. That's the concept, and use it at the ballot box, and that's what we're saying. So we started that in 2014, and we put together, there's a Facebook, a Twitter account, a website, and it's all there, and it's well supported. It's got, I don't know, I can't remember how many hits it's got just now, but I know that if you say compare it to the Save Our Services, which we also support those people in the other unions, the Use Your Power has picked up a lot more support on that.
Less on tolerance, 8,000 now.
I think it's beyond that since the budget stuff and that. So, but things start slowly, and that was the whole thing. We then decided to launch this campaign. And we launched the campaign with the, to stop the Barnett's fire sale. That's the T-shirts, and there's other T-shirts there and hats that you'll get at the end, or sometime through the course of the day. But the idea then was to get that. We were questioned on a couple of things, so I might as well get these up front, get them up front. The issue was aimed at Western Power, as opposed to supply sector utilities, and we've got Horizon and we've got Synergy. The reason for picking on the terminology of Western Power is that if you ask the general public where they get their electricity from, they don't distinguish between Horizon, Synergy and Western Power. It's all Western Power, it's how they see it. So given that we were wanting to target and get a maximum impact in the community, and also, I've got to say, a lot of the reporters are pretty lazy about the things like that. So if you start giving confusing titles around the place, they just actually sort of turn off the story. Whereas the Western Power just keeps it in their face all the time. And that was it. So that was why we went on that way. So maybe take a step back to find out why Barnett's been changing his position. And that's apart from the fact they've been strapped for cash. You've had these people behind the scene. Now, you'll know the names. You've got Mike McLaughlan, right, Treasurer. He, prior to becoming one of the state politicians, was the executive director of, I think it was the Institute of Public Affairs, an extreme conservative think tank. And they are clearly ideologically about privatising. They don't want the government in anything. As far as they're concerned, small tax, get the government out of it. Not surprising he's from the States, but that's his view. He just wants to get that done. And when there was the issues with regards to the board positions at Synergy, when we saw that Lyndon Rowe got the job in Synergy, again, ex-chief executive officer of the Chamber of Commerce, and before that he was with the the regulator. But his view at the time was governments should neither own nor run industry, power industry. So he wanted them out right from the word go. So you've got him there who's on at the back all the time. He's telling Barnett, if you want to get this done, if you want to get that done, if you want to get the roadway, if you want to get rail out to the airport, all of these things, then you've got to do one thing. You've got to privatise everything that you can. So they went for the TAB first, and that's been a disaster for them. I think they've lost money out of that. They then decided they would go for the ports, Fremantle Port. Of course, the Nationals knocked them off in that. And we know the Nationals are nervous when it comes to the power industry, because country areas are going to get hit harder. We've got a fairly simple message out of this when we're speaking to people, and if you take away nothing either than this message over the next couple of days, then it will still be an important thing to do. And that is that when they're talking about privatisation of the power industry, it is all pain for no gain. All pain for no gain. So what do we mean by that? Well, what we're saying is electricity bills will go up. Now, they might not go up initially. There may be some caveats put on the sale, but the electricity bills will go up. The reliability of the service will go down. But we've even seen it in West Australia. They've started, and Joe's going to do some reports later on about calling for redundancies. And you had that issue going on in the media where Mike McLaughlan is saying it's a beef up by the unions, there's not going to be forced redundancies, you know, it's just a correction of the labour in the workplace. When myself, Joe and Brendan, on 2 occasions with Western Power, put it to them that if they're saying that they're going for voluntary redundancies here, but they will go, they have said that they would have forced redundancies if they don't meet that number, and they'll go above the number that they're asking for if they do actually get volunteers. And they said, yeah, that's true. And we said, well, what about the fact that the minister is saying that there'll be no redundancies, no forced redundancies? They said, I don't think that's exactly what he said. Well, I know it is exactly what he said because it was on the television and it was recorded, and Campaign Capital got the transcript from that and the thing from it, which we let them hear. And that is saying that he's saying no forced redundancies and they've got a different position. So, we're seeing that start to happen. If you look at the apprenticeship thing, I think last year there was no electrical apprentices, I think. But there was, I'm now talking about Western Power, I'm not exactly sure about Synergy, people may be able to enlighten us on that. But there was a few lines apprentices. There's been no apprentices this year. Now, that's a fairly classic move. Stop taking on apprentices because it means you don't have a liability carrying on to the next person. So, we've seen all the groundwork's been there, the charade, the phony war, if you like, of telling the media that there's not going to be privatisations over. It's finished. They have made it quite clear. If they get elected, they will go on privatisation. And there will be any debate afterwards. If they get elected when it's become an election issue, they will say that they have the mandate to do it. Now, there was a poll done later last year, or the mid to late last year, where the West Australian just done an online poll. Never announced it was happening, just done it, and done it for 24 hours. And the result of that poll, the question was one question: do you support privatisation? Yeah.
It was, would you vote for a sale of Western Power? There was 1,427. It's fucking long.
Voted. It doesn't. There was that in 24 hours. There was
92% were against it.
92% of the people. Now, this wasn't after the union had got out there and started getting the message. This was something that went online for less than 24 hours. People who were watching it, 92% of the people said no to the sale of Western Power.
It was in June last year.
June last year. So, as a result of that, we know that the general public don't want privatisation of the power. But we know they're going to get a message put down, that it'll be more efficient, it's going to get all of that. And we have to make sure that we are on the front foot of the campaign out there. Now, since 2014, there's been steadily things happening where we've tried to get things in the media, but the push really started in the last beginning of this year, particularly leading up to the budget there. And we had the report done in time for the budget. We had some good things that got up there, some decent publicity over that. The West politician, by the way, not West, the West newspaper guy, Daniel, can you remember his name? Mercer. Daniel Mercer. Well, what a waste of space. I think he's actually, I think he'll get pre-selected for the Liberal Party fairly soon, because what happens is, even when he actually got the chance one time when he said to our media people, who are at the back here, Campaign Capital, Steed and Kate. So have I got an exclusive to this? It was one of the issues that we were putting out, and we said, oh, yeah, okay, you got an exclusive, expecting then that for once he might actually put something that we said in their press release. And so he gets an exclusive. But what we understand had happened was that he must have got straight on to the Pollies, told them, look, this is what they've got, because they went on the radio and started to try and defuse it before the exclusive was released. And then when it did get in the paper, it was very minimal comment that we made, and it was all about the government's position. So, we know where the media is in all of this, but we know where the public is, and that's our job now. Our job now is to turn around and say that they're all paying. Your bills are going to go up. The system is going to be less reliable. Brownouts and blackouts will last longer. And the other thing is that we've been hammering on this, is that we are moving into longer, drier summers. Now, we know that you cannot eliminate the chance of a fire. We understand that. Everybody knows you can't do that. But what we're saying, and the message that we're trying to get out there, is you don't knowingly take steps that will increase that likelihood. And we know that if you don't have the positions in place and the maintenance of the power lines, pole lines, and the general stuff that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, if that's not in place, then we knowingly increase that risk. Now, as a result of all of that, we've got to look at how we'll go forward. And over the course of the next couple of days, particularly when we get to campaign capital later today, we'll talk about what we propose to do in the hills areas, which is very vulnerable. That'll include town hall meetings. We'll do them, some of them will be on a Sunday. We'll be leafleting the towns that we're doing it in when we get there. But what we do know is that, you know, we've got delegates here that are from country areas as well. That message, we've got to start making contact with that local media there. For the local media, it's a good story. It is a good story. And in fact, the local paper up in Mandarin, I think it was the front page, the full front page, a big picture of the truck you saw there and a number of people there, even though they never turned up. They never actually turned up. I don't know what happened. They must have had a real busy day. A cat was up a tree or something like that. But they never turned up. But it was the front page of the newspaper, the front page, and everybody got it. So that's it. We want to up the, you've seen the flyers that's out there, and you've seen the post, the stickers. We'll be doing, getting other things going all around the place. We want to make this the pivotal point in this election. We say to Barnett, you picked the battlefield, but we were first on the battlefield, quite frankly, because we've been talking about their intention to privatise, even when the government spiel was, we're not going to privatise. We didn't believe them then, and we were justified in not believing them. What's happening now is the public has got that message, but they're going to get another message about, you know, if we need the schools, if we need this, if we need that, if you want the rail line, if you want this. But we have got to keep on song that it's all pain and no gain for the community. If we do that, we'll win. We'll win this issue. We'll win this issue. It's possible, by the way, that we might not be up against Barnett, because you've seen that the moves are on to try and get rid of him. And, you know, like, he didn't get challenged the first time. Well, that's pretty standard. You know, you just float the thing first up and then see where it goes. But if it'll be Barnett, but if it's not Barnett, it doesn't matter who it is. It's the campaign, it's the privatisation, it's the all pain, no gain, and it's one that there is no, and I'll make this point, there will be no room for people cruising in this issue. There's no room for people saying, oh, well, maybe I've done my time, you know, maybe it's time, I'll just go. We've got to be fighting this every inch of the way. When we win, we're going to be saying to the Labour politicians and others that they won the election on our back. Right? Now, they might say no. They were a bit cold in some issues of privatisation, you know, maybe 18 months ago. But you look at them now, and at an ALP executive, and yes, I am a member of the ALP. I've been in and out of it a few times. I'm not a dying the wool, because they just annoy me that much. But at the executive, I moved that, you know, they reaffirmed their position of total opposition to the privatisation, and the leader of the opposition, Mark McGowan, should be Premier, seconded the motion. So we've got them on board now. They're now going round, I think it was Fremantle maybe on Monday, I think, did they get some pictures? They were, certainly a number of the politicians now are wanting to get pictured, you know, beside the truck and things like that, because they're seeing that that's something that they want to associate themselves with. So we've moved them into that position. We do this when we've got meetings, we've got to turn up, and, you know, we've just got to be visual in all of this. I'm not going to go any further than that because there's other speakers who've got first-hand information of what happened there. Today it's that important today for you guys that, you know, we'll let the speakers will do what they've got to say, and you should let them run through that, and there'll be ample time for questions and ample time for us to come back and go through all of a host of things. But when you've got an opportunity to listen to, you know, what's happened in the other states, how they responded, you know, and what's happening now, you know, it's a privilege to get them all in the room at the one time, all being able to pass on to us their experiences so that we learn from them. And that's the intent of today. So I'll maybe wind it up at that, unless there's any other questions before we start going into the formal agenda.
Yes, any questions of Les on his opening remarks? Okay, if not, thank you, Les.